Hello there everyone, welcome to a special anime review brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast by novice writers for novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And for today's anime review, what I want to do is I want to have a look at the anime Tower of God. And I will also be talking about the webtoon that inspired the anime. So I will be getting into some spoilers both for the anime and for the webtoon series. So this is your spoiler warning. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut loose a little bit right here. I want to talk about the things that were done well, the things that were done horribly, and pull out some writing insight, which I think is very, very important, because I do believe after having watched all of the first season of the anime and having read well beyond in the webtoon, I have seen some things, I've learned some things anew for myself as a writer that I think that both for writers out there who are watching this and for people who just enjoy the anime, there are some things that we need to accept as far as the creative process goes. So I'm going to get into all of that here in this review. So first of all, let's talk about what were the things that were good about this anime and about the story in general before I start tearing it a new one. So I need to say right off the bat, I love the premise of the Tower of God, that you have this incredible world warping structure that takes you up to a certain point in existence where anything and everything can be yours based off of the desire that you have. I really like this kind of concept right here because I don't know, maybe it's the God complex in me or whatever, but I like the idea of being able to say that there is this limitless potential that a character can strive for, but it comes down to the personality and the adventure of that specific character that will determine then what the ending is like. I really like that. It's open-ended, and so you have no idea where it's going, and so you're really then strapped in for the adventure. I really enjoy that. I also really enjoy the politics behind the Tower of God itself, where you have the King of Jihad, who has this whole entire complex system put together where he is actually taking advantage of every adventurer using their own desires and competition against them to hone perfect servants who will then make sure that his empire lasts for eternity. And then within this tower itself, you have this secret underground group that is working together to try to bring down the entire system. And they are ruthless and cruel and manipulative. And they're honestly terrible people while working for something that, as you go throughout the story, you realize that they have very noble intentions, but are using the worst of means to get there. And it creates a lot of nuance, a lot of gray within the world of the Tower of God, and I really enjoy all of that. And I have to say that Rak and Kun, they saved this story for me right off the bat. I was a little bit dubious at first. In fact, actually, I was very dubious at first. And then as I got to meet them, I was like, holy cow, this is awesome. Rak is essentially a variation of Kenpachi Zaraki in crocodile form. Who doesn't like that? And Kun has an incredible backstory, a lot of gray to his character. He's a very morally great character who is striving for very honorable means, but once again just doing kind of the worst stuff to get there. He's like a cinnamon roll bastard, kind of like Grunkle Stan, who's an extremely dubious character, but you just can't help but love him. So I really enjoyed that, and that's all there within the anime. And beyond that, when you look at the webtoon series, the games get really good later on. Oh my gosh, complex, and just really, you have to have a certain kind of strategy down, and even then, there is a moral side to a lot of the games that are played, and I really enjoy that. So those are all things that have really made me enjoy the series, and I will say this, the characters get way better as the story goes on. However, Oh my gosh, it was so hard to get beyond the first episode of this show. First of all, I have to say this, and yes, this is a little bit unfair, I will admit that, but the show was overhyped. I was expecting something so much more. People were saying, the fights are incredible, the world is amazing and immersive, the characters are fantastic, and so that's what I was expecting to see. And yes, it's the first episode. You don't expect to knock it out of the park each and every time with the first episode. Some shows can do that. Some books can deliver such a powerful first chapter that you are committed for the rest of the story. And those are the stories that we really love to see. Sometimes a story delivers either a weak first chapter or maybe not the best first episode, but you know what? It's engaging enough that you want to go on and continue to see where this goes. Tower of God delivered garbage. We are given nothing. The one thing that we are given is understanding that if you climb the tower, you will get what you desire. That is its one rule. We don't know who these characters are. In fact, the one thing that I can tell you about Bam is that he's a walking trope. Oh my gosh, he is first girl equals best girl. He is the guy that I just want everyone to be happy and smile. I've been told to be good, so therefore I will be good. Oh my gosh. I wanted him to get eaten and stay eaten by that giant steel eel. I had no connection to him. In fact, I had no connection to Bam whatsoever until I read into the second arc of the webtoon. That is how uninteresting Bam is as a character. He is literally a walking trope. We have no explanation, and you know what? When it comes to world building, sure, you don't want to overload everything at the very beginning. That is not interesting, and it's not good storytelling. However, you want to provide your audience with a little bit more than just the premise of your story. You want to be able to at least provide some hints, some clues, give us a little bit more world building. Holy dang, we've got Princess of Jihad, we've got the Black March thrown at you, we've got this steel eel, we've got Mr. Rabbit Dude. Nothing. The show and the webtoon itself just act as though you should already know all of this, and actually never does it come back to explain any of this. Not within the first arc, not within the second arc, which is where I'm currently at. Yeah, it's a mess. Essentially, the story tries to be smart by throwing all of these different world-building tidbits at you without ever explaining them. It is a very Game of Thrones way to go. Look at this incredible, unique world with all of its variation and colors, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it because, oh look, I've got this plot that I got to do. Oh my gosh, that is terrible. When you throw in world-building aspects, you need to entertain them a little bit more. Sure, a lot of stuff is just going to bleed into the background to show how varied and how alive your world is, but you still need to answer some questions. At least give the audience, give your readers at least a little bit of that. But no, Tower of God does not do that in the first arc. It does it in the second arc, but not in the first. Another thing is this. There are so many characters who honestly, you get enough about them that they become engaging. However, they just get swapped out for whatever, for a plot. A lot of them just bleed into the background, and though you get something, you're like, holy dang, that's that person's motivation. Holy dang, that's that one person's power. I wonder if they're ever going to become relevant again. Nope, never again. Bye-bye. Sure, it gives you an idea that there's all these people here who are climbing the tower for their own desires. And it is neat to see that, hey, all of these different dreams are being crushed. It's a harsh reality of climbing the tower itself, which comes across really nicely. However, the story doesn't take any time to truly mull over what that means. And just take for a quick example, in the anime Haikyuu, you have an amazing scene during one of the tournaments where you get to see all of these different teams reacting to when they lose in the first round. Most of these teams you haven't even seen, but you get these moments where you see them crying, where they come to the realization that their journey has come to an end, that they are either now done with high school sports, or that they had so many hopes and dreams for this year, and they've been dashed in one game. And it's incredibly emotional because we get to see the impact that this has on all of these strangers. Tower of God doesn't give that to you in the first arc. It gets to that in the second arc, but when you're trying to establish what climbing the tower means, it's definitely lost on us. It's a problem in both the anime and in the webtoon. Another thing that I have to say is this. The story should have definitely started off with the second arc. Yeah, I know. Some people are going to say that comparing it to Berserk is like comparing apples to oranges, but hear me out. In Berserk, we start off after Guts has already gone through hell. We are introduced to the main character at his absolute lowest. And we then get to see him claw back a certain semblance of humanity before we are taken back to the actual beginning of the story, where he meets Griffith and the Band of the Hawk, where he begins to develop all these different friendships, how he falls in love with Casca, how he falls to the eclipse, and how he just barely manages to survive, and why he is then the survivor, and how he is now on this course with destiny that has stripped him of his humanity. And now we understand, wait, so everything that we've just seen, this is basically, it's both a revenge story and it's a redemption story. Holy cow, that makes this even better. The second arc is already strong enough on its own. It's so well written that if you had no idea who any of these characters are, you would already start falling in love with them. The world is once again re-explained in the second arc, and everything just falls together so much better. The characters are better developed, the feelings are much more present, the world is more carefully crafted, the games are much better, the pacing is much better. In all honesty, it should have started with the second arc, and then you get the first arc as a flashback to explain who Bam really is and how he knows all of these other characters. It would have been really cool to see all of these people coming after him and wondering, why are all these people after him? How do they, what do they know about him? They all seem to know something, but pieces are missing. And then to finally get that flashback and then to realize, oh, that's who these people are. That's why they're all important to Bam and why they know him somehow. And holy cow, that would have been amazing. However, so those are my gripes right there. I know that's quite a bit. And here's the thing. As I said, I have some insight that I had to relearn anew. You see, we in Camille's Harem, we've been doing this whole thing now for about 5 years. For 5 years now, we've been working on our own stories. We've been reading through other people's work. We've been reviewing stories. We've had this channel and this podcast now for nearly 3 years. And when you get that deep into your own work and into the work of other people, it's very, very easy to forget that the opening to a project can sometimes be very sloppy. And that's what I see actually right here with Tower of God, both as an anime and as a webtoon. It is a shaky beginning. Just because I didn't very much like it, though, doesn't mean that the story isn't good. Like I said, the premise, I really enjoy it. And when you get to the second arc in the webtoon, it is phenomenal. I love it. By golly, I've been spending so much time reading through Tower of God that I suddenly realized, holy crap, I actually have other things on my plate that I've got to do. It is actually really good. And that's how many different stories actually start out. It's a great idea, but sometimes the beginning is either too slow or too poorly written to not measure up to the rest of the story. Some examples include, for instance, the Fellowship of the Ring. I love the entire Fellowship of the Ring book, but one thing I do understand is that it has a very slow opening, and that doesn't fit with what people are expecting, especially when you know that there are these amazing battles. There's magic, there's philosophy, there's betrayal, there are these grand adventures to be had in the second half of the book and throughout the rest of the trilogy, but you don't see any of that in the first half of the book. And if you first read The Hobbit is an incredible adventure. And so when you start reading The Fellowship of the Ring, it doesn't match up to your expectations. And so there have been plenty of people who have laid aside the book, never having gotten past the first few chapters. And that's because it didn't quite match up to those expectations. Tolkien had to build up to the greater stuff. But let's go even larger. Let's think about something like The Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time is a huge, expansive fantasy series and a very definitive fantasy series, actually, as far as like what has inspired writers and everything. And the first book is so slow, and its ending, its climax, is so rushed and nonsensical. I did not want to finish the Wheel of Time series. The only reason why I kept up with it and in the beginning was because my older sister said, you have to read this series. It is incredible. Oh my gosh, I could not. I had such a hard time getting through the first book. But then it starts picking up, and you see then where all of these little pieces start going. The writer Robert Jordan becomes way more creative and way more grounded with his characters. This is just something that happens. We see it from professional writers all the way down to beginning writers, where you have this fantastic idea, and the first installment works. The Tower of God Season 1, Arc 1, it works. It honestly does. But it's not as great as what comes after it. And that's something that we have to accept. Sometimes an amazing story doesn't have the best opening. And I'm honestly very happy that I stuck it out, because I really do enjoy this story now. But it was so hard to get through it. So my advice is this. If you're going to be someone who's going to write a very large series, if you're going to create a very long story, it is so important to stick that beginning. It can be very hard, trust me. But if you take the extra time to make sure that you have your beginning well plotted out, your characters already well developed, good world building, good plot development already at the beginning, you will have stuck your landing, and you'll be able to build up even better to the amazing moments that you have planned later on down the road. So that's basically my take on Tower of God. I would love to hear what your thoughts are, especially if you've been reading through the webtoon. Tell me what you think about the adventures that Bam and his friends go on. And as always, I absolutely love reading the comments that people leave. So please go ahead and do that. If you're looking for more solid writing advice, definitely writing advice that gets more specific, please go on over to our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, and Google Play. You can also reach out to us via our subreddit, where we do more in-depth discussions with other writers, and we also have writing exercises over at our Pinterest page. We are also starting up a special podcast all about anime. Nathan, Scott, and I have come together to talk about all forms of anime and manga. Need for Weeb. We will have a link to it very soon, so that way you can check it out. And yeah, that basically does it for me for this video. So until the next video, y'all, tschüss.